Yeah. So just as a continuation, our steering work group really is trying to focus on collaborations, and one of the big ones we're doing this year is Phenotype February. We kicked this off last week on the call, and you're going to hear from Azza and Gowtham and other collaborators who participated in this first week. But just to level set, the idea here is that phenotype development evaluation is super important to all the work we do in the community. And we think it's something that warrants everybody's attention for a dedicated period of time, which is why we're spending this month to really shine a bright light on it. For anybody who's interested in participating, there's lots of ways, but it is not complicated. The way to participate is just read what's going on, join conversations that are out on the Odyssey forums. And when you see a lot of posts from Azza and Gowtham saying, hey, anybody want to volunteer? Just raise your hand and volunteer. You're going to hear from Azza and Gowtham about a structure that they've created to just try to moderate and facilitate a lot of important conversations to try to drive the conversation forward. But just to be clear, what we're really looking for is the month of February. Let's talk about phenotypes. And you can do that on the Odyssey forums, in Teams, anywhere else that you'd like, but let's put some energy towards a critical piece that's important for all of our research. So I think Azza and Gowtham are going to walk us through what we did in week 1 and where we're going in this week 2 of Phenotype February.
So let me start with what happened last week. On Wednesday, that was February 1st, Dr. Evan Minty kicked us off with a very thorough and nice review of the acute pancreatitis phenotype. Evan, are you on the call?
I am, thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. First, Evan, thank you very much for a very, very nice discussion on acute pancreatitis. Can you please share with us your high-level 1-minute learning from either the process or acute pancreatitis itself?
Yeah, I think there was probably two main learnings from the experience. One was in doing the review itself. I think one of the things that came through was just the impact of that ETL can have on the phenotyping process. I think that was an important learning of both going through acute pancreatitis and going through some elements of case reviews. I think the broader theme of this month, though, I think is starting to become clearer. That post, I think, tried to have it serve as an introduction for people relatively new to the process. But I think where we're heading is really exciting this year, which is towards a bit more of a simplified review process that is both systematic but also as parsimonious as possible. And I think the discussion in the pancreatitis thread reflected that, and the great discussions in the week 1 debates reflected that. So that's the part that probably excites me most, is where this process is taking us, which I hope is to a place where things are a bit more defined, focused, systematic, but also simplified.
Thank you, Evan. That's great. The other thing we accomplished in first week was another great review from Dr. Andrea Noel on anaphylaxis phenotype. I'm personally very excited about Andrea's contribution, not only because Andrea brings us a very important perspective from EPIC and their experience in phenotyping and what they learned across the EPIC system, but also because Andrea only met us last October in the symposium. Her curiosity brought her to the phenotype development and evaluation work group, and since then she's been really a great collaborator and contributed a lot on our thinking and framing of the phenotype development and evaluation. Andrea, can you tell us what you learned from your review of anaphylaxis and your reflection on the process and anaphylaxis itself?
Sure. Thank you so much for that nice introduction, Azza. Hello, everyone. When I'm thinking about phenotyping, I really like to consider 4 W's: the who, the what, the when, and the where. And with any phenotype that I'm considering, I try to think about what each of those parameters are going to do to the cohort in regards to the sensitivity and the specificity. And when I'm looking as a peer reviewer at the anaphylaxis phenotype, the thing that struck me was that we were really trying to identify acute anaphylaxis events and not just patients with a history of anaphylaxis. And our initial definition was focused on diagnosis codes. And one of my big concerns was without some extra criteria for diagnosis location and evidence of treatment, that we could be unintentionally capturing a significant amount of follow-up care. And so in my review, I propose that we do a few further investigations and consider some revisions to the cohort to find that sweet spot of sensitivity and specificity for acute anaphylaxis events. And I really appreciate that Gowtham has put up a call to the community to help with some of these further investigations, where we're going to combine the diagnosis codes with locations, evidence of treatment, and consider expanding the window for cohort entry and exit. And so if you have the interest and the resources to help us with this, we definitely welcome your assistance. And I think my big takeaway from this week is how exciting it is to be a part of this community and the collaborative process. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Andrea. That's awesome. And we already have some volunteer who picked up the challenge on continue to work on anaphylaxis, and we're welcoming more volunteers as Andrea has proposed a very specific revision that will require some collaboration and working with the data and vocabulary. So thank you very much. Okay, on Friday of last week, we did a peer review for appendicitis, and this one we did it slightly differently. So we opened the call for the Phenotype working group, where we had 30 collaborators join the call. We did a group kind of peer review of appendicitis. We had multiple people who contributed. Anybody who was on the call, who are on the call today, who would like to reflect on our peer review of appendicitis? I know Andrea was there. Sebastian, are you on? Anybody else? Well, if not, you can see the recording itself of the entire call on the forum, and it's posted here on the link on the slide. We also ended up formalizing our review into specific points that we put on the forum for appendicitis, our reflection on it, our acceptance of the phenotype itself, and few recommendations for the phenotype. So very thankful for the people who came on the call, and it was a very, very informative and very rich discussion on appendicitis. So that was great. And finally, on actually it was Sunday, Anna made her contribution on peer reviewing neutropenia. That was another very rich discussion on neutropenia, where Anna brought both her clinical background, but also her knowledge about the data, and specifically in this case measurement, and how can we make mistakes and not mistakes when we do phenotypes using measurements. Anna, any feedback, learning for the community?
Sure, absolutely. Again, thanks a lot for the initiative. It's been an absolutely wonderful experience. I think what is interesting about this specific phenotype is that when you think about neutropenia, it is essentially a measurement-based phenotype, right? But if we are dealing with the claims data sources, we do not really have the measurement results in place. So if we want to develop a phenotype that will be applicable to both EHRs and claims, it should be a combination of measurement-based criteria and diagnosis-based criteria. And the trick that I'm sure everybody who has worked with measurements know well is that the measurements is a very heterogeneous space with low-income SNOMED and different units. And it's really hard to come up with a comprehensive phenotype that will cover all of the units and all of the types of codes. And I thought that this phenotype was a great example of it, of a very comprehensive approach to it, where you have multiple flavors of units and comprehensive concept sets. There were some minor comments, but really, I think this is the challenge, and this is something we need to work on more in the community as to how select all of the applicable measurements and units, or how to standardize them better, you know. Another takeaway that for me was that cohort diagnostics was very useful, especially in assessing the differences between different phenotypes when you look at the patient characteristics. And there, the clinical description was in fact very useful because it contained some placeholders for the things to look out for, to watch out for. For example, we believe that neutropenia is common in cancer patients, and seeing a lot of cancer patients in the cohort diagnostics was really good and sort of reinforced our confidence in the phenotype. And of course, seeing the results of the Phevaluator was very useful because we could observe some data source specific trends, which, for example, make you think that maybe for the EHR data sources, there's something going on and we need to develop the phenotype better, while for the claims, it's very nice sensitivity, specificity across the board. But in general, it was a very rich source of the objective data on the phenotype performance, and that helped me a lot in determining which phenotype was the best for neutropenia. So I highly would recommend everybody to check out the cohort diagnostics and Phevaluator whenever you create phenotypes in general.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna, so much. And lastly, what we accomplished or started, I would say, last week is that we started the discussion about the peer review process itself, and we had great feedback about how can we structure this process as well. If you have any ideas, any thoughts about how we could do a peer review in a more simplified, as Evan has mentioned, or more structured way, as also Andrea has alluded to, please provide your feedback on the forum post on the week 1 discussion phenotype peer review. Thank you so much. And now Gowtham can take us to what is happening this week.
Yeah, so what's happening the week 2 of Phenotype February? So today is day number 2 of week 2, and we already had a post yesterday. Dr. Joel Swerdell built on top of the work that he did last year on systemic lupus erythematosus. He posted that work on Phenotype February 2022. But this year, he performed a comprehensive evaluation by first combining the 3 core definitions that he presented last year into one. His definition, which he submitted to the Odyssey Phenotype Library, has a cohort ID 119, models an incident systemic lupus erythematosus with 90 days of index date misclassification error correction. So he's used Phevaluator, and he applied that Phevaluator on 7 data sources and showed that the core definition has a sensitivity of around 94%. And the PPV was fair, about 65%, 68%. So his peer, Dr. Daniel Prieto Alhambra from Oxford University, said, Joel, we hardly ever diagnose systemic lupus erythematosus without an antibody measurement. Maybe if you use antibody measurement, you could improve your PPV. Dr. Alhambra was the peer reviewer for Joel's post. He independently performed a detailed review of core diagnostics. The output was available to him in a publicly available site, data.odyssey.org/phenotype library. He looked at every diagnostics. He looked at the orphan concepts, index event breakdown, visit context, cohort overlap, cohort characterization, and he recommended the cohort definition to be accepted to the Odyssey Phenotype Library as an incident newly diagnosed systemic lupus erythematosus. The theme of Phenotype February 2023 is to perform such a structured, comprehensive review. We are going very deep into every disease. This week, we have 2 more clinical ideas that will be phenotyped. On Wednesday, our Dr. Christian Reich is going to do a thorough evaluation on 3 core definitions for the clinical idea of acute hepatic failure. And his peer is Dr. Patrick Ryan. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Later on Friday, Dr. Christopher Macaulay, Zachary Wang, and Will Kelly will be leading us through their work in Johns Hopkins University, developing a phenotype for a very rare disease, inflammatory dermatomyositis. This is a disease where it's a rheumatological disease that has inflammation of the muscles and the skin at the same time. They have built a definition that they've shared with the work group, the Phenotype Development Evaluation Work Group, and the Phenotype Development Work and Evaluation Work Group will meet this Friday to help them conduct an evaluation. They're currently executing the core definitions that they have built on the Johns Hopkins University's OMAP CDM dataset. And for our exciting weekly debate, we are tackling a very important topic: chart review, gold standard validation versus innovative methods like Phevaluator. Some of you have done chart reviews. If you have an opinion about chart reviews, we want to hear from you. How was your experience? Was it good? Do you like it? Will you do it again? Or maybe you're on the camp that you think that chart reviews is just not feasible, that it is not useful, and you want to think about new ways to overcome the problems. That's the theme of week number 2. So we ask you to please engage in this conversation. Azza, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, and you forgot to mention that also on idiopathic inflammatory mycosis, Asya will be the peer
Yes.
review, and she will be delivering her peer review at the end of the week.
That's right. So thank you, Asya, for volunteering to provide the peer review. So we need volunteers. There's a call for action for anaphylaxis. Andrea has proposed changes. We have asked the community to participate. So if you are a clinical expert and understand anaphylaxis, we want to hear from you. Do you have ideas to rebut what Andrea has proposed? If you're a data expert and you would like to be part of a network study, this is an opportunity. We want you to volunteer. Or maybe you're familiar with Atlas and would like to help build the code definitions that would help answer Andrea's questions. We need to run a network study, and we need software experts who can help troubleshoot and help new data partners run software. So we're looking for volunteers to collaborate and for the Phenotype February 2023. Please reach out to me or Azza at any time. We are going to be meeting this week on Friday at 9 a.m. on the Odyssey Phenotype Development Evaluation Work Group.
And I think, Gowtham, you want to specify that this Friday, we're going to be doing the evaluation for idiopathic inflammatory mycosis in a group session, just like as we did the peer review last Friday. So this Friday, we're going to conduct the evaluation for the work coming for idiopathic inflammatory mycosis as a group. So if you are interested in how we do the evaluation step, haven't seen it before, that would be a great
Right.
meeting to attend, or you actually want to be involved in being an evaluator, please also attend. So we can all form our evaluation, write it up, and send it to Asya to do her peer review. And to be specific on the volunteers, currently we do have a current need for somebody who can just do Atlas. You don't even have to have access to Atlas on your own instance. We're going to use demo Atlas to work to help in next week's activities. But if you know how to do Atlas and you have 1 hour of your time or 2 hours, would like to collaborate with a clinician who would give you an idea, and you just need to work through Atlas to implement a given phenotype on Atlas demo. That's a current need that we need. So raise your hand right now if you have 1 hour and you can click on Atlas and would like to contribute. And that's it from us, I think, Patrick.
Great, Azza. So very specifically, because I just saw the question in the chat, if somebody wants to volunteer, what should be step 1? To the forum posts or?
Put your name on the forum.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there's
sorry, go ahead.
There's announcement that Gowtham puts on. There's announcement for Phenotype February. That's the page to enter. That's where we're keeping everybody in the loop.
Great. So the forums is the best place to go. We'll make sure we get that on the community calls page as well. We have a couple minutes. So Fabricio, I see a hand raised. Or maybe that was applause.
Yeah. We got Fabricio. Yep. I think he's volunteering for the cohort.
Oh, okay, great. Well, there you go. Yeah. Any other questions? I know there's some in the chat. If anybody wants to, I see Christoph asked a question about a list of the specific phenotypes. So that was in the slides last week. The 10 phenotypes that are going to be addressed over this month. I think it's on your original forum post. Gowtham, right. So you can find it there. Again, everything on the forums. Anybody have any? Again, there's more in the chat. It's kind of tough, but people can respond there. But if there's anybody who wants to raise a hand and ask a question, so we have a couple minutes.
Hi, it's nice.
Yeah.
Hi.
Wait, okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, Ami, I think. Did you raise your?
Yes, I did. I'm sorry, I'm a complete newcomer, and my background is basically clinic and academic nursing. What I'm struggling with is what is a simple pathway? I'm looking now, for example, of diabetic retinopathy and uncomplicated diabetes. What is really the pathway to get to the right phenotype? We are using OMAP. I'm part of the All of Us program. So anybody, I sent Andrea Noel an email a minute ago. Yeah, if just provide me what is the pathway? How do you start the drilling process? It's simple as this, because in OMAP, a lot of other phenotypes are hidden under the same OMAP code. That's it. I will look forward to any help with it, and I will share with you what we are trying to do in order to be able to get at the right phenotype. Thank you very much.
Great. Okay. I see Patrick responded to that in the chat as well. Nige, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I put it in the chat as well, but that actually maybe follows on from Ami's comments. But the first module of the phenotyping problem course with Gowtham and Azza will launch on the Eden Academy on Thursday, and it's free. And the subsequent modules, hopefully through the rest of the month. So you'll get all three during Phenotype February. And just a quick plug, Eden Academy is now used in 100 countries around the world. So there's a great opportunity for exposure, I think, for all of this through the Academy as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Nige, and congratulations. It's an amazing accomplishment and incredible work. If anybody's not familiar with the Eden Academy, please do check that out. Great learning opportunity for anybody in the community or who wants to kind of get started in the community.